This Wii used to have a defective disk reader. Instead of replacing the disk drive, some space was freed up by throwing it away and installing a mod chip instead. Let's fill this empty space with a clay model and properly theme the Wii casing around it. We'll start with modeling the clay figurine, since it's the central piece of the mod. This mod is mostly cosmetic. The only planning necessary is to determine the space that the model can occupy. The dimensions of the clay model are chosen first. But if the model ends up slightly bigger than expected, we'll be able to slightly adjust the supports inside the Wii later on. The clay used is a cheap water-based clay. It cures by itself in 24 hours, no need to bake it. It's not the best for thin and complex models. However, this is a simple build with very little volume. It's almost 2.5D. If you don't have much experience with sculpting, which is the case here, try to envision the 2D drawing, transfer it onto the clay, and work from there. This is a simplistic design. There are only a few details. So, the key to making it look good is trying to keep the proportions consistent. And also, making the surfaces smooth and void of defects. For that, you can rub the surfaces with water, and then clean up the details with sandpaper and a nail file after the clay is cured. Take advantage of the tools at your disposal. Use knives to create sharp angles, and take your time. Once the clay has fully cured, it's time to take a nail file and sandpaper to the model in order to true it up. The crown was modeled last, and its proportions were slightly off, but by sanding, the defects can be masked. For instance, here all the surfaces were smoothed to eliminate the rocky look of the clay. After sanding, a coat of spray paint is applied to the model. It will act as a primer for the modeling paint that will be applied later. Let's focus on the case. It will be painted and modified to house the model and its support. Since the Wii's defective DVD drive has been taken out, the hole will be cut where the drive used to be to take advantage of the leftover space. First, the cutting line is marked with a pen. Be sure to verify that the opening is symmetrical and properly placed. Then, with a rotary tool, the case is cut. The triangular shape is supposed to mimic the opening in the Ice King's fortress. Cut in a straight line and sand away any defects. The cut needs to be clean, or it will show on the finished product. This was originally a white Wii. After a thorough cleanup and light sanding, it was painted with a coat of light blue paint before any other modification. The spray paint will allow the modeling paint to stick to the Wii case when we apply it. The desired look is drafted by drawing straight onto the case. The different shapes show the limits between the flat colors. Now, a first draft of the colors can be applied on the Wii case. They are quickly brushed on it to get an idea of the rough look. The colors are mostly mixes between white and two kinds of blue. No need to buy many paint colors for this project. The main shell of the Wii casing is made of 3 parts. When drawing shapes on a complicated item like this, you want to pay attention to the areas where the parts of the case connect. If you want everything to line up nicely, you're better off painting the first coat with the case assembled. You'll notice that the preliminary markings were done with the case closed. Then, later on, you can disassemble the case and paint the parts that were covered. That way, you make sure the lines properly meet when they're on each side of a seam. After this imprecise first coat of each color, each part of the case is painted several times so that the colors pop. Then, the final white line can be painted slowly and carefully. It's imperative that the lines meet. So, the case is put together for the first coat of white paint. But the hidden parts will still be painted to look clean from every angle. After that, a small brush is used to correct any little mistakes and straighten the white lines. The final step is to paint the eyes, making sure they are symmetrical. The very final step will be to protect the case with a shiny clear coat. But for now, let's paint the Ice King model while the brushes are in use. Much like before, the paint is applied very fast at first, without being precise. This modeling paint requires many layers for the true colors to show. Luckily, it dries pretty fast, and you can do these layers back to back. Some colors are harder to apply. For instance, the yellow required many layers before it looked alright. When most of the paint has been applied, any mistake is carefully painted over. The details like the eyes and mouth are done last. With that, it seems we're done with the modeling paint. The Wii is put back together the way it's supposed to. As mentioned before, the case has been clear-coated with a shiny varnish. This will ensure the paint won't rub off. The modeling paint is basically encased in a thin but hard transparent shell. The paint is now waterproof, and the surface of the Wii can be dusted or cleaned like a regular Wii. To replace the defective DVD drive, a Wii Key Fusion is used. This mod chip is easy to install. Just connect it instead of the DVD drive, and it will read games from an SD card. Just use electrical tape to insulate it, and then directly hot glue it into the case. The new SD card reader is dedicated to reading games, so we can't use the original one in the Wii. To make room for the second SD card reader, some adjustments are needed in the casing. The black support is sanded to save space. The front of the case is carefully cut so that you can insert an SD card in this new slot. There's just enough room to fit this SD opening in the little tray on the front of the Wii. The new SD slot is placed just 1 centimeter from the original one. In order to secure the model in the Wii, some sort of support was designed. This support will introduce new screw posts in the Wii case. It's a very simple 3D model that was 3D printed with a low resolution. The second purpose of this support is to also introduce walls to hide the circuits in the Wii. Thus, the support is designed as some screw posts separated by thin walls. It was very quickly designed in SketchUp and printed with PLA. Using a 3D printer is a great way to save time. But you can achieve the same results with scrap plastic glued together. Much like in this older video where a similar modification was done on another Wii. The model will be glued on a flat plastic frame. This frame will be screwed onto the supports. The frame was cut from scrap plastic, making sure it fit the size of the support. Screw holes were drilled and the whole frame was sanded slightly. After that, the flat frame and the 3D print were quickly painted in matte black in order to make them a little bit more discreet. Before painting, a few strips of tape were applied to the center of the plastic frame, where the model will be glued. This ensures that the glue will bond to the plastic and not the paint. The model is secured on the frame with epoxy. Just be careful not to get some droplets everywhere, as they're difficult to clean up. After printing and painting, the support is glued to the inside of the Wii case. It's mostly secured with epoxy, but it's also a good idea to coat it with superglue. It reinforces the bond between the layers of the print. Because of the low resolution of the print, the screw holes had to be drilled in the support also. When all the glue has cured, the frame can be screwed on the support, and the Wii case can be reassembled. By inserting an SD card only, the Wii plays games just like it should. We've successfully restored its ability to play games while giving it an original look. If you enjoyed this video and want more, subscribe. And if you want frequent updates, follow the Rated E Mods Facebook page or Twitter profile.